You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
It is Friday. It's also Friday before the game. That's right, the college football season is here. We already watched a little bit of it, but now we're going to get to the main dish. That's right, because Ohio State does not matter. We care about Michigan. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire, and as promised, we have a gargantuan guest joining us every Friday to talk about the upcoming matchup. You know him, you love him, Mackey Award-winning tight end, Jake Butt. Jake, thank you so much for joining the show, man.
Always a good time, Isaiah. Happy to be here. If they're the main dish tomorrow, does that make this show the appetizer?
It does. It does. Now you're just making me hungry, man. It's Friday morning. I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
Yes.
But yeah, that's you know what, Jake? You know what I'm excited about? One thing that no one else would really know this, because people ask me all the time, what stadium has the best food, all that kind of stuff. I don't get to partake, just like, you haven't in the concessions, right? I don't know what they have upstairs. But Sodexo, who does the catering for Michigan, when they have noon kicks, they very often have a delectable French toast. And it's absolutely incredible. It's like, waffles. Sorry, waffles. They're like those sugary Belgian waffles, and I cannot wait to get back into the photo room and the press box and get to partake in some of those.
I hear you. Back when we played with Brady Hoke, all the noon games, he would call them glazed donut games. You wake up on Saturday morning, your alarm rings, you get the call from the hotel about 8 o'clock in the morning. Not us players, but definitely Coach Hoke and some of the staff, and I'm sure most people, it's a Saturday morning. You get your glazed donut, you get you a cup of coffee. The noon games are great because you wake up and roll, and it's time to go. And I'm fired up too, man. I'm hungry for some waffles, but I'm hungry really for the main dish, the Michigan Wolverines.
See, now I'm just hungry. But yeah, I know I think we're all ready to see something that's a little bit different, especially considering, when I say different, I mean different from what we saw last year. Because last year it was, I was at all of the games, and it was just such a bummer. I mean, for me, yeah, it was up in the press box, and that's not where I like to be. I'll be in the press box for the Washington and the Ohio State games this year. But I want to be on the sidelines. I want there to be people. I want to hear noise. And we're opening up on the road, going to Minnesota last year, and that was being in an empty stadium, essentially. I mean, there were parents there, essentially, but, it wasn't loud. There wasn't really anything of note, and it just made me realize, watching the game last night, Ohio State, Minnesota, it felt real. It felt normal to see all those fans there. I mean, it didn't even look like the same place that I was at to open the season last year. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the game or not, but I don't know how much of a difference those fans made for Minnesota as well, right? Because Minnesota hung tough. And by transitive property, which means nothing, especially year over year, that means that Michigan trounced Minnesota. Ohio State, it took them until the fourth quarter to be able to pull away to pretty late. So that makes me wonder, when you go into this game here against Western Michigan, we talked about it on X's and O's on Sunday, about Michigan having a killer instinct and those types of things. Tell me, what are the things that you are looking for that maybe signify that they have a little bit of what it takes? Because Western Michigan certainly is no Minnesota.
Right. Now, I mean, listen, it's game one. You're not winning the Big Ten championship tomorrow. You're not winning the national championship tomorrow. This is a game really that Michigan should win. But again, we need to bounce back from the performances we put out last year. There seems to be a new energy around the program. But talk is cheap, and in this is opponent we really should beat. We really should dominate. First and foremost, I'm excited to go see the defense. We got the new defensive coordinator. There's some guys out there on the field. Aiden Hutchinson, I'm really, really excited. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the country, and I'm always attracted to watching a guy go out there and just put on a dominant performance. So I'm expecting that from him as well. But Western Michigan, they're no slouch. I know their quarterback is. He's a legitimate NFL prospect. His touchdown to interception ratio, I don't think he's going to make a lot of mistakes. He completes a lot of, a high percentage of his passes. But, overall, this is a game we really should win. And all the best Michigan teams I've known going back, 15, 20 years, they've had a dominant defense, especially starting up front. They like to impose their will on the defensive line. So that's what I'm going to be looking for on the defensive side of the ball. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, I'm excited to see Cade McNamara command. Is Cade a Heisman candidate? I don't know. He's definitely not getting that level of attention, but I think within the Michigan program, amongst his peers, obviously Coach Harbaugh's talked highly about his leadership and his ability on the field. I'm excited to see him command the offense. We don't need to do anything special tomorrow, but we do need to put on a dominant performance. I'm looking for the offensive line to create a lot of push up front, get the run game going, get a lot of guys involved, get the touches, and this really should be a good confidence builder. Hopefully we put on a really, really good performance, win big, and it'll just kind of allow us to kind of cruise into the next week. But definitely can't overlook this opponent. It's a big test for us, and this is going to be the statement game. We're going to kind of get an idea to see what the Michigan Wolverines will be this season.
Like you mentioned, their quarterback Caleb Ellaby, sophomore season. It is fourth year here, but he's a junior coming into this year, but he's in his fourth year. He last year, you mentioned the touchdown interception ratio. He played in 6 games. He completed 65% of his passes, 15 yards, 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he's a guy who takes care of the ball. Michigan saw John Wasink last time in 2018. But the thing is with Caleb Ellaby, he's got some veteran guys to throw to in Sky Moore and Jalen Hall. So they don't have their big guy from last year in Dwayne Eskridge, but there's still a lot of returning production. Jalen Hall is a guy that goes out there, gets touchdowns. Sky Moore, he's got half that in production wise, touchdown wise rather, but he still had 388 yards to Jalen Hall's 323. So there is certainly a lot to look forward to when it comes to that. Let's talk about it on the other end. We still have plenty to talk about here. But before we do, I got to tell you a little bit something about, I don't know if you've heard about this, Jake, because you haven't, I'm assuming you haven't tuned in very often to the Locked On Wolverines podcast because you have been in the NFL. But one of the things that I swear by is a protein bar called Built Bar. And it is incredible. I have bought dozens of boxes of my own volition. Yeah, they are a sponsor of ours. They've sent us, samples here and there. I didn't even know they were a sponsor. They sent a box at one point, and I was like, oh, these are pretty good. Now they've completely redone the formula somehow. They are unbelievably delicious. I can't help but have 2 at a time most of the time. Peanut butter brownies, my favorite flavor. They are a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar with very high protein, but low calorie, low carb. Hence, I can have 2, and it's still less than getting like a Metrics Big 100 or something like that, calorie-wise, yet it has more protein doing it that way. So if anyone, Jake Butt, anyone else out there listening, wants to get your hands on one of these and try it, like a lot of the listeners out there have, go to Built.com, put in promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off of that next order. That's Built.com, LOCKED15.
Now, this is unplanned, Isaiah, but that's usually my go-to protein bar. I've been driving, I've moved from Denver. I've spent a little bit of time back in my hometown in Ohio. If I'm in Ann Arbor, I'm in New Jersey right now. I'm driving all over the country. That is actually my go-to gas station stack, and it's been for a while. So I'm a big advocate for high protein, low carbs. We like big, strong muscles. We like to keep our calories down so we can still look lean, but protein fuels the body. It fuels the mind. I'm a big fan of the bars too. So Unplanned, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a pleasant surprise.
I mean, they're excellent. I'm telling you. All right, we are going to continue talking about this game. There's a lot to. I feel like it's not one of those things where there will be a lot to glean in the sense of what does Michigan look like against a tough opponent. At least you hope that's not the case. Certainly, we've seen games where people didn't think that was the case going in, only to find out that maybe it was. I think back to, even though I was saying at the time it was a tough game, everyone else wasn't. A game you played in 2016 Colorado. I don't know how you as a team, and I'm assuming since you were playing under Jim Harbaugh, you were looking at it as a pretty tough game as it was. But as a player, when you enter not necessarily a game like that where you're playing another Power 5 team, but when you are going into a game that maybe you feel like, yeah, we absolutely should win this. Yeah. What are the challenges? Like, because if we go to a press conference and we ask that, they'll say like, oh, every game's a big game, championship type game, but obviously that can't be going through your mind every single week in 12 weeks, especially when you're like program caliber of Michigan. So what are the challenges that you see for this team when against a team like Western Michigan in that light?
Well, I think to me, what first comes to mind isn't exactly the challenges, but when you face a team like this, it'll show the mentality you have as a team and how you view yourself. So you mentioned the Colorado game. Obviously, Colorado, Western Michigan, they're not exactly the same program or opponent, but I know that 2016 team, my senior year, when we took the field, we wanted to impose our will on every single opponent. We took the field knowing we were better than them. We took the field knowing we should win and win big, and we wanted to dominate them, honestly, just kind of take the air out of the opponent, rip the hope straight from their heart. So by the third, fourth quarter, the game would already be over by then, so that's what I'm looking to see here is that the challenge is you can't come out lackadaisical. You can't come out just, hey, we're Michigan expecting to win. Everyone wants a piece of us, and, Western Michigan is going to be no different. So I want to look to see them, go out there and play to the standard that, we've heard about all offseason, that we've heard about throughout camp and throughout this week. We've talked about some of the changes. I want to see Michigan go impose their will and put on a dominant performance this week. And this is an opponent we really should beat in that sense.
Now, you mentioned earlier the offense, Cade McNamara being a first-time starter, and he's not really first-time starter in the sense isn't his first start, but it's essentially he's a first-time starter because he only started one game, which was the Penn State game. How difficult do you feel it is when you go out there for the first time, especially this is his first time even playing in front of fans at the Big House? How difficult or how much juice? What's the emotions that you anticipate a guy like Cade will feel when he goes out there in front of the fans? He's going to obviously have everyone behind him, but at least to start, because we've talked a lot on this show about how Michigan fans, when it comes to the quarterbacks, they don't necessarily always get the love. It's a very short leash the fans have. But what are the types of emotions that you figure he'll have going out into a game like this?
Yeah, it's going to come, it's pretty individualized, and it's going to speak on the personality of, each individual quarterback. And everything we know about Cade, everything we've heard about Cade is that he's cool, he's calm, he's collected. We know he's going to go into the game and be prepared. But, it's kind of a tough balance where you don't want to be too cool, and kind of coming out a little too slow. A little bit of anxiety and a little bit of urgency is actually a good thing. As Cade enters that huddle, are the O linemen looking into his eyes and believing him? Are the running backs and the receivers looking into his eyes and saying, we know you're going to lead us down the score every point in time. So it's a little bit of a balance, but I'm confident in Cade. It seems like, everyone around the program and from what I've seen personally is pretty high on him. And we know the number one thing is he's going to come into this game prepared. And I'm excited, man. It's an awesome, awesome place. And for him to get the start in the big house as we're entering this season, the fans are back in the stadium. There's high expectations. There's a lot of urgency. Everyone's looking for something big. So what an amazing opportunity and what a great way for him to, go in there and get a first start in front of 110,000 fans. It's going to be exciting.
Now, obviously, Michigan has a lot of weapons on that offensive side, but we haven't really gotten to see them all deployed per se. We did get to we have seen some of the receivers like Ronnie Bell. Obviously, he has been consistently good for the Wolverines in his tenure. That you've got some other guys that we're just kind of waiting on, whether it's Mike Sainris still or Eric All, guys who we've heard a ton of hype about since 2019, but hasn't necessarily come to fruition. We saw a lot of really big flashes from Cornelius Johnson. I just named a lot of names, and they could be of those varieties, but at any of those positions on offense, including running back, who are you most excited to see? You already said Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive side of the ball, but who are you most excited to see and why?
It's, of course, I'm biased, and this is a boring answer, but I want to see the offense put it all together. I really don't want to see, us too dependent on one position. I want to see a body of work. And one position group I think that doesn't get talked about enough is the offensive line. When I look at dominant teams throughout college football, you see those five guys up front, and they're working in unison. Their double teams are creating movement. You see that blue line, it's 1st and 10. You see the blue line, and the dominant teams just move. They move the defense. They're meeting the linebackers, in their stance. And with that being said, one guy I really like is Hassan Haskins coming out of the backfield. I think he's an explosive athlete. I love the way he runs. And I think for us, again, we're settling into a new season. This is a team you should, really dominate up front. So I'd love to see us get the run game going there. And then, of course, once we get that going, that should open up everything on the outside for the receivers, guys like Ronnie Bell. Of course, I'm biased. When you get the run game going, little play action, pop passes to the tight end, whether it's a corner route or something over the middle. Eric All, beast. I know they have high expectations about him. Again, it's a little bit boring answer, but I really want to see a body of work put together by this offense. And I think that'll just give us confidence going throughout the whole rest of the season.
There are a lot of exciting components, especially the player I'm really looking forward to see. I'm really looking forward to seeing the running backs room in general. I feel like we didn't get to see them come anywhere close to the potential a year ago. But, yeah, you lose Zach Charbonnet, Chris Evans obviously off to the NFL. But Donovan Edwards, I've been singing his praises since I saw him as a sophomore, before his sophomore season. He was injured his sophomore year, but as a junior and a senior at West Bloomfield, he is a guy. People were talking on the broadcast and on Twitter about Travion Henderson from Ohio State. I can attest to you, even though Donovan committed in December and Travion committed over the spring, that Ohio State wanted Donovan Edwards more than anybody. So I'm that makes me that much more excited given the track record that they've had in recent memory with running backs. So I'm really anxious to see that. And I'm with you on running the ball. I think they have a really, I think the offensive line, one of the things that really stood out to me was that every time I asked Jim Harbaugh a question at the outset of fall camp, I'd ask, what young players are really starting to step up, and I asked him another question as well, neither of which had anything to do with the offensive line, and he wanted to talk about the offensive line. Maybe that's just where he thought he could fit in, getting in some of the some of his talking points. I don't know, but to me, it seemed like the fact that he kept on coming back to that offensive line tells me that he feels like it's a position of strength All of these guys have experience. When I talked to Joel Klatt in Indianapolis, what he had said to me about what he saw as the area that Michigan, the way that Michigan could have success is by having a healthy offensive line first and foremost, because last year you had a lot of different guys rotating in and out. So if they can stay healthy, there's a good chance. We're going to give our predictions here in just a moment. But before we do, I got to tell you a little something about betonline.ag, because guess what? Football is here. We had games yesterday. We got games tonight. We're full slate tomorrow, over the weekend. NFL starts next week. As always, betonline.ag, it's your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all of the updated odds, props, and contests, including the $500,000 NFL Mega Contest and the $200,000 NFL Survivor Contest, open now at BetOnline. Head over to betonline.ag, use your mobile device, sign up today. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your 100% welcome bonus. Be sure to take advantage of all their opening day super promo equals. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys, featuring a couple of Jake's old teammates, and JD and Sean McCune. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25. BetOnline.ag is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to horse racing. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Jake. We're getting to that time, right? We need to start making some predictions, start figuring out what we think is going to happen. In your mind's eye, when you take a look at this game, this matchup, what do you see? What do you don't give me a final score just yet, but what do you predict will happen when you sit down and you watch this game tomorrow?
Well, kind of like I talked about, we've been talking about what I would like to see is what I expect to see. I expect to see Michigan put on a dominant performance. But with that being said, it's game one. You have a new coordinator. There's been some shuffling around the team. So there's going to be some mistakes. Again, it's back in the stadium, back with having fans. That's an adjustment after a year off of that. There's going to be some excitement. Sometimes excitement can lead to a little bit of mistakes, but I'm still looking at Michigan to put on a dominant performance. I'm looking for 4 or 5 touchdowns on the offensive side of the ball, maybe a handful of field goals. Would love a shutout from the defense, but again, we're facing a good quarterback and a good offense on the other side of the ball. So, maybe we budge and give up a couple points. But overall, I really expect Michigan to win tomorrow.
I obviously also expect a win. I went on the Locked On Big Ten podcast yesterday morning, and they asked me, what do you think that there's any danger in Michigan losing this game? And I said, not even a little bit. Now that said, it's you got to be able to do this, and it has to look a little bit prettier, right? Than your average going up against your average team, especially compared to last year. Last year they had the Big Ten opener right off the gates, and that's not something we're accustomed to seeing. Michigan has to be firing on all cylinders, and it tends to be the case in the season opener when playing. Harbaugh is 4-2 in season openers. The only losses came at Utah and at Notre Dame. He's won every home opener so far. Michigan tends to, but nonetheless, we've seen them take on some good opponents like Minnesota last year, Florida in 2017. Maybe they weren't quite as good as the hype. You wonder to some degree how much of that was a byproduct of getting shellacked in the first game of the year. But I want to see this Michigan team look sharp. I want to see them coalesce quickly. And I want to see a fast start, because that's one of the things we didn't see at all last year. And particularly on the defensive side of the ball, because what we need to see is stops, and we need to see them early and often. When you look at what Western Michigan brings to the table, they were even back in 2018, if memory serves, and I'm double checking on this right now, they were able to put up points, not as many as they have in recent years, but they were putting up 32 points a game. They put up 42 in a loss against Syracuse in week 1 back in 2018. The next week, they come to Ann Arbor to play a Michigan team that was only ranked 1 spot ahead of Syracuse and only put up 3 points before they go on and rattle off 68, 34, 40, so on and so forth. So you hope that the Michigan defense is a little bit more in line with that. So I expect to see a team that is everything that they've said that they are, because the energy thing, I've heard that on the record, I've heard that off the record. And I think it's time to finally see them put it all together and look more like the Michigan team that people anticipate. I'm sure that if that happens, everyone's going to get really high really fast, in the sense of I remember driving home from Minneapolis last year and listening to people that normally hate on Michigan say, hey, we need to talk about how good Michigan is. So it's just one game, but I think that we're going to see the Michigan that we generally expect to see. All right, let's finish this out. With that in mind, we've given our general idea of what we anticipate to see. It's final score prediction time. Jake, what is your final score prediction for this game?
So with everything we just said, I'm expecting, probably 4 or 5 touchdowns out of Michigan. I'm going to go with 31-14. 31-4. I would love a shutout. 7 points, 10 points would be better. But I can live with 14 points. One of those touchdowns being in the second half. I think we're going to put on a dominant performance.
I do agree that maybe the defense won't be quite shutout ready yet. I think that might take a little bit of time. But I definitely think it will be vastly improved. I certainly hope we see more on the offensive side. Someone asked on the mailbag yesterday, what point differential essentially would you make it? Would it feel us to be successful? I feel like it needs to be about 25 points or so between. So I'm going to go a little bit higher as far as my point differential. I'm going to go Michigan 42 because I think that they need that type of pouring on. So Michigan 42, Western Michigan 10. I'll give them a touchdown and a field goal. All right.
I like that.
Jake, that'll do it. We got episode 1 of our season preview in the books. And but we'll be back to talk about the game early in the week in X's and O's. So looking forward to talking about a big Michigan win.
Absolutely. And to all the Michigan fans, reach out on Twitter. Let us know what you think. And go blue. Let's go get a big time win this weekend.
All right, for Jake Butt, I'm Isaiah Hole from Locked On Wolverines. We'll talk to you soon after the game. That's right, we got a game. Peace.